Good evening. There are warnings that thousands of people in Lincolnshire, many of them elderly, could lose their savings and even their homes because they're being targeted by postal and internet scammers. The number of people in the county who've fallen victim has risen by almost 50% to more than 2,000 in the last year alone. Trading standards say it's becoming a huge problem, especially for the elderly, the vulnerable and the lonely. Our political reporter Sharon Edwards has more.
These arrive frequently, daily.
Bogus lotteries, fake sidekicks. Kate Cifaldi from Spalding says her father is in the grip of scammers.
You fill in an order form and you send them money. And then they tell you that you're going to go into a draw. This one is for 15,500. It's become an addiction. He's now in the state where every day he's out at the front of the house 3 or 4 times waiting for the postman.
The gentleman in receipt of this mail has been known to get up to 40 letters per week. Now, he, like many others, has found himself on a list being passed between fraudsters, a list of people particularly vulnerable. And it just results in more and more mail. Over the past year, Trading Standards in Lincolnshire has been working to a list of 1,500 identified victims of mail marketing scams. But during that time, the list has grown to more than 2,000. That includes those targeted over the internet and telephone. Some are spending up to £700 a month. But they say these figures are the tip of the iceberg and are visiting victims to try and get them to stop.
Ultimately, people can end up without any money, without the home, in care, and it does happen in Lincolnshire.
This man's mother, also living in Lincolnshire, has been scammed, and he's calling for a bigger police response.
The police have got to accept that this is a major crime. Each £15, £20, £30 cheque is a tiny amount of money in the police's terms. I understand that, but actually when you add all this lot together, this is happening at an industrial scale.
It's organised crime. It is serious organised crime. 9.4 billion going out of the country. That's going towards trafficking, towards drugs, towards terrorism.
These scams are orchestrated by gangs of criminals, often working abroad. But the individual impact is huge, and it's growing. Sharon Edwards, BBC Look North, Spalding.
Joining me now is Marilyn Baldwin, whose mother Jessica was targeted by scammers. She's joining us now. Marilyn, good evening to you.
Good evening.
I mean, you know firsthand, you've had first-hand experience about this. Just how dangerous is it?
It's very, very dangerous, and it's very serious and very endemic. My mother was a victim that was targeted by postal fraud 15 years ago, and she spent the last 5 years of her life literally reading, writing and responding to scams. She became so brainwashed in it all that the family could just not make her see reason. There was no help available. She wasn't diagnosed as having mental incapacity, and she just continued to be scammed up until she died.
Is it unfair to call this almost an addiction?
It's not an addiction, because what these criminals are doing is they're posing as a whole host of fictional characters. Some of the scams that people are being targeted with are clairvoyant scams, and they're threatening bad luck, they're threatening harm to the family. So it's not an addiction if somebody's sending their money every week or 3 or 4 times a week to protect themselves.
But why do you think so many people are falling prey to these? Because, you know, the old saying, you know, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And I'm surprised that people don't pick up on that.
Well, modern technology has made mailing lists readily available to anybody. And these criminals are working from mailing lists that categorise people as being elderly, categorise them as being vulnerable in some way, possibly living alone or bereaved. So they know exactly who they're going for. They're going for people, hoping they're going to find people that are over-trusting, people that maybe are in the early stages of dementia. But that's why these crimes are kept silent. They're kept a secret, because the people they're going for the most part, don't recognise that they're being scammed.
Sure, I understand that. Just briefly and finally, advice for people who think they're being scammed or think that their parents maybe are being scammed is what?
Well, the first point of call would be Trading Standards. They're doing some fantastic work around scams. But in the long term, the government really needs to recognise this for the scale of the problem that it is and get help for victims who, like my mother, cannot recognise they're being scammed, even though they're accessing all the help that's available to them.
Indeed. Marilyn, very good to talk to you tonight. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.